All right, this is your Federal Bureaucracy overview. To start off with, some of the tasks that federal departments perform in the agencies are issuing fines, going to Congress, and looking at iron triangles in that relationship. So we're going to get to that, and then we're going to explain kind of the authority that these individuals have within the government. So if you think about it, what agency would be involved in protecting the U.S. border? And you'd be amazed to see that all of these departments are actually involved in protecting the U.S. border, not just Homeland Security or defense, but the CIA, agriculture, even the Postal Service. So again, a lot of departments doing a lot of similar jobs and trying to work together. So what is it? The departments and agencies within the executive branch. Again, some people are appointed, and then all these bureaucrats are individuals who work there for a long, long time, career jobs that run these different agencies. For example, the FDA, the FDIC, with the banks, the EPA. About 2 million employees. That was around 2009. It's probably up to about 2.5 million. And then a lot of contracted work, so about 12 to 15 people are indirectly affected. There's a love-hate relationship. They do a lot, but sometimes it's not as efficient as people would like, or don't do it the exact way they would like them to do it. And here's an example of bureaucracy and how things can become a little bit more difficult.
Feeling lost in a sea of economic news? Start making sense of it on Planet Money. Now blogging, podcasting, and taking your questions at npr.org/money.
A few months ago, Martha Stewart invited rap star Snoop Dogg into her kitchen to bake brownies.
Can't you rap while we're doing this? Tell me what you're doing and rap.
Trying to bake some brownies, but we missing the most important part of the brownies.
Which is?
No sticks, no seeds,
Which
no
is?
stems.
Well, they stuck with a traditional recipe, about 7 ingredients and instructions that can fit on an index card. Basic brownies are about the easiest thing to bake. That is, unless you're baking them for our men and women in uniform. We came across a blog post at Reason magazine this past week that linked to the Pentagon's official brownie recipe. It is 26 pages long, with detailed specs for the finished product.
Section 3.3.5. The brownie shall be completely enrobed with a continuous...
Section 3.2.5.3. Shelled walnut pieces shall be of the small piece size classification.
Section 3.2.6. Whole eggs may be liquid or frozen and shall have been processed...
We called up Jeremy Whitsitt, who works for the Defense Department's Combat Feeding Directorate, to find out why parts of his recipe seem to require a dictionary and a lawyer.
One thing we like to say is what would happen if you cooked a meal, stored it in a stifling hot warehouse, dropped it out of an airplane, dragged it through the mud, left it out with bugs and vermin, and ate it 3 years later. Nothing if it were an MRE.
And it's true, these brownies will last for about 3 years inside a sealed military field-grade food packet known as an MRE. But how do they taste? We called up Penny Karras. She's a baker who owns Hello Cupcake here in Washington, D.C., and she agreed to bake them for us. Okay, Penny, we are in your kitchen. First of all, thank you for doing this.
Sure.
Okay, and have you read the recipe, all 26 pages?
I read the relevant parts of the recipe and skimmed the non-relevant parts.
Okay, now we have it in front of us here, and I'm going to ask you to make sure that we have all of the right ingredients. So let's just go over the list here.
Okay.
Do you have flour?
We do.
Okay, you got shortening, some kind of shortening?
We don't use it, but we got it.
You got it, okay. So you got some nuts, right? We're using
walnuts today.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Are the nuts small piece size classification, U.S. number 1 pieces of the U.S. standards for grades of shelled nuts?
They are small piece size classification.
Do the nuts pass through a 4/16 inch diameter round hole screen?
We measure them with a tape measure. We don't have that type of screen to measure them, so we did it another way. But
okay.
Yes.
Let's get to it.
Okay. The first thing I'm going to do is whip the eggs. So I'll get the eggs out. The recipe also calls for dextrose, which is another
I
type
love
of
dextrose.
sugar. And we don't have it in our kitchen. We're a small scratch bakery.
Penny whips up the eggs, shortening, flour, nuts, sugar, cocoa, and vanilla into a thick paste, and then she scrapes it into a pan and pops it in the oven for about 20 minutes. And then they're ready to eat. You started to cut a few here, right?
Yes.
And you have to cut it to the appropriate size when cool. The dimensions of the coated brownie shall not exceed 3.5 inches by 2.5 inches by 5/8 inch.
Looks like we have exceeded the height of the specification by about 3/8 of an inch.
You know what? There have been lots of people who've cheated the Pentagon on the contracts. I think they'll let you get away with this one. All right, so we got it. Now the question is the texture of these brownies firm but not hard? So can we try?
Sure.
Oof.
It's not so great.
They're awful. They're not very good, and they're really crumbly, right? But they're designed for MREs. They're designed to be preserved for a long
Packaged,
time.
yeah.
Packaged, and these would last.
A good long time.
And a final note to this story. The Defense Department has recently streamlined the recipe. It now includes instructions for cake and muffin tops as well. And as for the length, it's now 31 pages. Thanks to Penny Karras and Hello Cupcake in Washington, D.C. for baking the brownies, and to Art Silverman and Jim Howard for reading the recipe, which you can find at our website, npr.org.
That would be then your example of how bureaucracies work and how much paperwork people have to go through just to get one small task complete. They can also issue fines. So, for example, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, you'll see signs over workplaces. If some employer violates workers' rights, they will be fined. They investigate, usually just to keep the workplace safe. A lot of what bureaucrats are called to do is go in front of Congress and testify on a certain issue. For example, the Food Drug Administration had testified in front of Congress about the concerns of e-cigarettes. The biggest thing is implementation. All the things that Congress passes, laws, regulations, that they pass down to the bureaucrats. They make sure that the companies are following them and their departments are following them. Again, the President and Congress aren't experts, but the bureaucrats become experts in their field and work there for 30, 40 years. Bureaucrats have a lot of power to decide on how a law is implemented. It can be written one way, but they decide how to regulate it. Again, they can announce regulations. There's about 70,000 pages of regulations, and they also decide on the fines. In order to become a bureaucrat, you can take a test. You're hired off a merit system based on your education as well. The Pendleton Act in 1883 set up this service commission to draw and enforce rules on hiring and promotion rather than the spoil system where presidents were just giving jobs to people who were friends, people who were loyal to the party, which was then creating a government that wasn't efficient. 65,000 people serve at the will of the president, with around 1,500 needing. For your homework assignment, you are going to take one of these departments, whether it's Homeland Security, Transportation, Veterans Affairs, Education, EPA, FEC, or the SEC. That's what AP says are the most important departments. And you're going to answer the questions on the right-hand side. There's a Google Doc on Schoology that you will use to answer those questions based on your department.